Hi, I'm Dr. Spearman, and thank you for listening to PERC Up with the President. Today, once again, we're going to talk about persistence, enrollment, retention, completion, better known as student success. But today we're going to talk about it from the lens of one of our trustees. I'm happy to inform you that Lynn Kearny, our Board of Trustee, one of our Board of Trustees members, is here today, and we're going to start off, Trustee Kearny, by simply asking you to look in the camera, introduce yourself, let us know, sum up your professional background and something, at least one area that you are serving in within the community.
Certainly. Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Kearny. I've served on the board for, this would be my 7th year, I believe. I was recently appointed to fill a vacancy. So I had served a 6-year term, and then I was 2 years off of the board, and now I'm back on the board to serve Rock Valley College. I taught in the public school system, middle school science, for 36 years. My first 2 years were actually in Oregon, Illinois, and then 34 years in the Harlem School District at the middle school. My relationship with Rock Valley College, however, first started when I graduated from high school. I myself attended Rock Valley College for 2 years, graduating with Associate in Science, because I had every intention of being a doctor when I finished all of my schooling. But like many students, money was not exactly free-flowing. And at the time, there weren't a lot of opportunities to borrow money and or to get scholarships. So after reflection, I decided that the thing I wanted to do then was to teach science so that other people would be as excited about science as I had been. My father actually was a professor here at Rock Valley College for 30 years in the social science department. So basically, education is my family's business. My brothers were educators, my sister-in-law educator, my daughter herself is a teacher in Wisconsin. So it pretty much is the family business. So instead of going into making sausage or something like, your dear old dad, we became educators because it was talked about when I was younger growing up. At the dinner table and other events, we talked about education. I did not even receive a graduation card from high school, and when I questioned my dad why I didn't get one, he said it was expected. So in my family, the expectation was you were going to college. Sadly, that's not the expectation most of our students come with. It's not the expectation that they grew up with, and therefore it's more of a commitment on their behalf to actually attend school, because it wasn't something that they had given a lot of thought to, perhaps, prior to actually attending Rock Valley College. So one of the reasons that I like to sit on the Board of Trustees is because I'm the only one of the 7 that actually has a history of being in the educational system, working with students, working with parents, working with counselors, administrators, and the like. So I believe that my particular niche is something that the board benefits from in my capacity to know about education. I also served for 25 years while teaching as the union president of the Harlem Federation of Teachers, which serviced 1,000 members. So I serviced everyone from bus drivers, paraeducators, custodians, teachers, and the like. So I also have background in bargaining teacher contracts and what are issues that educators really feel strongly about. So that basically is some of the background that I bring to the board.
I appreciate you taking the time to explain that, because you really shared your extensive background. I think where I want to start is education.
The family business.
The family business. When you think about education, when you think about the family business, How do you sum up student success in your own mind?
It was always impressed upon us that as long as we applied ourselves and did the best we could, then any grade basically would be acceptable, even though there was the expectation that you would graduate, you know. But it was always taught to us that even knowledge, for the sake of knowledge, is a good thing, that it made you a better citizen, that it made you a better participant in your community. Because with the education that you received, you could assist in other areas outside of school. My brothers served on the Literacy Council. They, did community outreach in that capacity. My older brother still tutors students and has for decades. I myself have chaired the Rockford Sexual Assault Counseling nonprofit here in Rockford for more than 20 plus years. And we also have an education component. So even that system of nonprofit works to help educate people. Even in their darkest hours, it helps to educate them so that they know that there's better coming, which is, I feel, a very important concept for students to know. Doesn't really make that much difference that you didn't do well in a class your freshman year or even in middle school or something. But if you have a desire to better yourself, to better your community, to better your family, to have the opportunity to grow and achieve, then really education is the key. They always said if you didn't have your health, you really didn't have anything, which is basically true. If you're in poor health, then you're behind the 8 ball. But second amongst that is education. If you don't have some form of education or specialized training, we always get kind of caught up with, what do you need college for? You're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Oh, they are the smallest number of graduates from 4-year institutions, 2-year institutions, vocational institutions. We have a glut of lawyers. We don't necessarily need to be graduating tons of them. There are so many other things that a college education is good for.
So what do you say to the parent that has not earned their degree, but they have children who are in school right now? What do you say to them to encourage them to keep their child moving forward?
I try to always encourage them. We used to actually have meetings once a month, my middle school, quote, team, because there were 6 of us, teachers on a team, and we had a group of students that we were responsible for. And every month we had a parent meeting. It was voluntary, but we almost got every single parent to come. And we discussed issues from ADHD to attendance to tutoring and how to help your student. We used to actually bring our students to Rock Valley College long before the new process developed of all the high schools bring their students and the middle schools. Way before that happened, we used to take a field trip here and make a point to go to the CAD lab and the robotics room. We also went to the library so the students could see that libraries were more than just a collection of books and what they could actually do there. We would take them to the music rooms and we would walk the campus, and every single student, when they got back on that bus, and we said to them, where do you want to go after high school? We want to go to Rock Valley College. Because they had never known what they didn't know. So I have always tried. I used to make actually a pamphlet of things that parents could do with their students during the summer, of 100 things within our region, stretching from Madison, Wisconsin to Chicago, Illinois. All of the things that were even free. The days that the planetarium was free, the days that the zoo was free, You know, the Museum of Science and Industry, oh, to me it's just a palace of so many things to see and do and expose your children to, because what they really need is exposure, because they don't know what they don't know. If they've not seen these things, they have no clue as to the fact that A, they exist, and B, there are careers available to them in these fields, whether it be fire science, whether it be physics, whether it be amusement parks. When we used to get to our unit on physics, we would discuss roller coasters. I go, guess amusement parks, guess who they hire to figure out their rides? It's not people, you know, who just like to ride a roller coaster. It's physicists, because they have to design the roller coaster to work with the laws of physics so that it actually runs the way it's supposed to run. And engineering, you know, mechanical. I go, you like your skateboard, you like your snowboard? Engineers built those. Engineers designed those. It's not just for doctors and lawyers. It's so much more. So I used to try to encourage my parents to take their students as best they could. And I used to tell them, make it a group activity. You don't have to try and drive by yourself all over the place. I said, a couple of families, or, you know, you and a friend or some, pool your kids together so it's a group activity. You would enjoy it, the kids would enjoy it, and they learn so much. And then, boy, the questions. Then they start, because the kids now have questions, because now you're piquing their curiosity. Now you're showing them things that they didn't know before. It's like showing a kid a new video game, something totally unexpected, or a new app or something. You know, they're all about now the
Definitely.
social media, the apps, and everything else. It's the same concept. They still don't know what they don't know. So it's really exposure. I don't know how best other than that to explain it. Even at the kindergarten and the first grade level, they need exposure. And it doesn't have to be over the top. In third world countries, Dr. Spearman, third world countries, there are kids living on garbage mounds because there's no other place for them. And they scavenge, and that's where they live. And if you ask them what do they want to do with the money they make, or what do they want, to a child, they will tell you they want to go to school. Now, if a child in a third world country with no exposure to anything other than sitting on a pile of garbage can tell you that what they want is an education, then we should be able to show our students the benefits of an education.
So, I agree that we should be able to show our students the benefits of education, and exposure early and often is critical to them wanting, them meaning the students wanting or aspiring to be educated. As you talk, it's almost like you're speaking in your teacher voice, even if you're not.
Yeah,
That's
it's difficult to.
It's okay. I love it. So, but because of that, I'm going to ask you to sort of take me and walk me down memory lane and share one of your student success stories when you've helped a student in the classroom or something, and you knew later on through that student's experience that you were successful in helping that student succeed.
Well, hopefully I can get through it without tearing up, because for me it's such a personal story. But I did have a student in my science class in 8th grade, and his name was Chip. And his mother wrote a lovely letter for when he was moving on to the high school to say, thank you, you know, our son is just so excited about science, you know, and everything else, and we owe it all to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Which in and of itself is an unusual event for a teacher to get a thank you note. Certainly in middle school, most of the parents are just happy that they made it through middle school and they're going to high school. So I didn't think all that much about it. It was very nice, very pleasant. Then in high school, when he was ready to graduate, she sent yet another note indicating that her son, Chip, had been accepted to the University of the University of Iowa, and he was going to major in biochemistry. Now, it's not often that you have students that leave and major in such difficult and high aptitude subjects and think to thank you for doing. And I can't tell you what I said that piqued his curiosity, that made him so interested in science that he would want to make it his career. But after he graduated from college, she wrote again to indicate he'd been accepted to the PhD program and he was getting his PhD in biochemistry from the University of Iowa. And later on, he actually went on to get hired by one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the United States to work on a group to develop drugs to help repair muscle tissue of the heart that had been damaged because the person had had a heart attack, and that's normally what happens is the heart muscle itself is damaged. So they were working on drugs that would repair that damage. So I really, you know, every time I think about it, it's just like, wow. Because all those people he will impact, and I can't even tell you what I said or did, but it clearly left an impression on him. So when you see things like that happen, you just can't help but think, wow, this is the best profession on the planet because you have the ability to impact so many others. And I could, you know, I have friends that have had other experiences like that. I mean, I can't go out to eat when we used to go out to eat, you know, without running into former students, you know, and they always wanted to come over and say something. Now, I can honestly say I didn't remember all their names because they look different when, you know, when they're 14 than they do when they're like 36 and they no longer have hair. So, you know, but it's just, they make a connection. If you can make a connection with another person and help them along a path that's going to be beneficial to not only themselves, but to their families and to other people around them, then really, it's a fabulous profession. And we have teachers here at Rock Valley College. I mean, all of us, all of my family, my older brother, my younger brother, my nieces, you know, and so on, they all went to Rock Valley. And they'll tell you still to this day their favorite teacher from Rock Valley College and what an impact they had. So it's not an isolated occurrence that if you can reach a child and show them what their potential might be, what the opportunities are, you know.
How many years were you in the classroom?
About 30, well, 2 in Oregon, then 34 in Harlem, 36 years.
But I thought you were a principal at one point in time.
No.
You were
Only a teacher.
I was going to say only,
I know
but I do not like
I know I
saying
don't
only.
like the term,
Yeah.
only a teacher,
I do
but
not
I
like saying
never
that.
wanted to be in administration because I wanted to be in the classroom.
Okay, so you were in the classroom the entire time.
And the union presidency was enough of administration.
You were busy.
Oh, yes. I was busy.
So what advice do you give to the college teacher, faculty, in regards to student success or engaging students?
Well, every level's different, of course. You know, the distractions are different because so often the students at a community college are older. You know, what is our the average age is what, 26, 7?
Depends, but 26.
Yeah, 26 years of age. So, and they have outside responsibilities and so on and so forth, and things that take their time. So in many ways, it's a very different setup. I had you know, they had to be in my room for a certain amount of time. So I had the captivated audience, and they don't necessarily have a captivated audience. But the basic concepts are the same. You have to engage students. They have to feel that they're getting something from what they're doing, and that what they're getting can translate into something further down the road or will assist them in other classes that they're taking. It doesn't have to have necessarily a one-on-one correlation with their job of the future, because that doesn't work. You know, that's not realistic. But it does have a bearing on other classes that you're taking, other activities that you might be doing, and so on. So all the courses are important. And for those people who sometimes think that getting a fine arts degree is a, quote, waste of time, I would have to say, no, it's not, because it taught you critical thinking, it taught you organization, it taught you a love of learning, it taught you so many other things that you can incorporate into what you finally wind up doing, whatever the case may be. So I would never say that the transfer student to a four-year institution is just, you know, getting their, quote, credits out of the way for when they get to the four-year institution, because that's not really what they're doing. What they're doing is setting their foundation for doing well in the remainder of their educational story. Then there's the whole flip side of that, and there are those students who are more kinesthetic. They have to touch things, they have to do things, you know, because all of us learn it in a different way. And so for them, we offer, those students can get so much from our educators in engineering, but also in the CNC, the machining, even the welding, and things along those lines. There's no subject that's not important. It's just the combination of the subjects that becomes important in your end result. So that's how I always view it. It's not the individual class that's necessarily the most important thing, but it's the combination of the classes. So you don't have to ignore the one to embrace the other, and vice versa. They can work hand in hand, and should actually work hand in hand, so you get the best result of the combination of knowledge. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I asked you from your teaching perspective, so now let's think about it from student success from the lens of a trustee. How do you feel, let me ask it this way, what is your impact as a trustee on student success?
I view us as the means, because we don't run the show. Administration runs the show. The trustees really, when you look at it, have a very small prescriptive, quote, design of the function of a trustee. And so much of it has to do with fiscal responsibility and so on. But for me, I've always viewed it more as, what can I do? What benefits can I put in place? How can I help the administration to have the students succeed? What facilities do they need? What equipment do they need? What professional individuals with certain skills do they need? What can I do to assist them if they fall behind? How can I get them here? What can I do to make it easier for them to succeed? You know, is it the facility? Is it the transportation to the facility? Is it the location of the facility? Is it the time that the classes are offered? You know, these are the kinds of things that I always think about on how I can help them to be able to succeed. Because I can't succeed for them, they have to do that themselves. But what can I set up or assist the administration to set up? So if the administration would come to the board and say, you know, this is our issue, this is a problem for us, this is what we feel might be causing students to drop out after a semester, or they don't, you know, come back, or they take a year off, or whatever. And so often those are issues so out of our control. They're family issues, they're work issues, you know, because so many of our students work outside of their educational attainment. So we can't do everything, but we can sure try to make it easier for them to succeed by the facilities, by the personnel, by the programming, by the equipment, you know, the length of classes, the offerings and when they're offered and for how long they're offered, and should it be a co-op class or should it be a not a co-op class, should they, you know, there's just so many options available now that whatever we can do, whatever I can help to put in place by helping the administration get what they feel is necessary for the students to succeed, that's what I feel my job is.
All right, I appreciate that. And I have one more question. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to bring back PERC, persistence, first semester success, from fall to the next semester, or from the, let's say, first day of the semester to the first day of the next semester, right? Persistence. Retention, 1 year, fall to fall, success. And then there's enrollment, you know, simply enrolling, completing application, enrolling in the school, stepping foot on campus, stepping foot in the classroom, and then of course completion, whether it's completing the credits or completing the certificate or degree. When you think about those 4 categories, which one do you put at the top as most important?
Well, you have to get them here first. If you're enrollment, if you don't have those things in place so that you can get them here, then persistence and so on really would take a back seat to enrollment. And I know that it's not just about enrollment, because once they're here, you would like them to succeed, because that's the whole point. You know, why be here if the point is they aren't going to succeed? So for me, it's almost like the chicken and the egg. Mm-hmm. It's like, really, if they're not here, you can't help them succeed. But if they're here, then you better help them succeed. So where do you put the biggest bang for your buck? Where do you strategize and so on and so forth? It's difficult. It's a moving target. Mm-hmm. You know, and COVID didn't help, and there are other things sometimes that don't help as well. But I've always felt, for enrollment, I've always felt you have to start in the elementary schools. You cannot wait to the high school. To me, that's like trying to put a Band-Aid to an arterial bleed. I'm sorry, but you're giving a little help, but it isn't going to do anything. You know, because by the time they're in high school, there's so many more things in the way of their attaining success. One has only to look at the dropout rate, which is sad, you know, because you've already lost so many students to that. So if you start at first grade, kindergarten even, first grade, go down to the Discovery Center and look at a little kid playing on all that stuff down at Discovery Center. You can't wipe that smile off their face. Little children thirst for knowledge. They don't know that's what it's called. They don't know that there's a future in it or anything else, but they enjoy it. They like it. They're excited about it. And getting excited about learning, that's the #1 key. If you're excited about what you're doing, you are really going to put some effort into that. And if they can see there's a path for them, because we talk about the pathways and everything else, but that's high school. Once again, for me, as an educator, it's too late. You really need to get them early. When I would talk to my students, and I had elementary friends, and when I would go and bring some science equipment to them, I brought them a Van de Graaff generator. I don't know if you know what it is. It's just a big, looks like a big bowl, and it's got a tube, and it's got a little top. You put your hands on it, it makes static electricity. So the kids put their hands on it, and their hair stands up. They think it's the coolest thing since sliced bread.
So I've seen that before, but
yeah.
If this was trivia, I would have lost.
Well, I'm sorry, but in the future, if you get on Jeopardy, Van de Graaff generator. And, because elementary schools, they can't afford science equipment. So if Rock Valley would partner with some elementary schools and could bring some science equipment. It doesn't have to be fancy stuff, or it doesn't have to be fancy experiments, but just so kids could see what you do in a science lab, it would be, it would make an impression on those kids. It would make an impression on the teachers, because they feel so overwhelmed with all the subjects they have to teach, and so on and so forth. You can't be an expert in everything. It's impossible. And science used to be one that made some teachers a little bit nervous, you know, because A, they didn't have the equipment, and B, they really didn't have a lot of classes in it. So what better way to show them? Same with the engineering, the same with the robotics. You know, you show those, whoa, those kids couldn't get enough of that CAD lab and that robotic arm, and all they were doing was stacking bricks. You know, if you showed them a jet engine and showed them how they could repair it and how they work on it and stuff like that, they would be impressed. I used to tell students, because they're all into music, and you know, always when you're seeing a movie and they're showing the guy at the big soundboard, and they're moving the, you know, the treble around and the, you know, this, that, and the next thing. I go, you know what kind of degree that person has? And they looked at me like, what? I go, it's all math. You want to know why math's important? It's math. You want to be in astronomy? It's math. It's all math. The things that you don't know would impress you. I go, so that's why you learn your multiplication tables, because what if you want to be a sound engineer? You have to know some math, but it's a really cool job. You have to know math just to be a musician, you know? So bringing real world activities to kids, and then they go home and they tell their parents what they did, their parents have got to be excited that their child was excited at school. Instead of, what'd you do at school? And you get nothing, you know, and then they just go off on their computer and everything else. Because there's a lot more competition now for kids' attention than there ever used to be before.
That is true. I agree.
So if you can try to link all of that, because there are so many science sites and other sites too. I mean, I speak from science because that was what I taught, but other classes, it's the same kind of thing. You can build roller coasters. There are several programs on the internet where you can go and design your own roller coaster and then test it to see if it would actually work. You know, which the kids I used to have them do it. Oh man, they loved it, you know. So I think that one of the things we really should be pushing for with the community and the educational community is how can we bring it to the lower grades? How can we bring our programming or our expertise, or how can we liaise so that we can help you motivate your students or help your students and their parents understand. I believe that parent contact, you know, those once a month meetings, those parents were so appreciative of them, you know. And we had them at like 7 o'clock at night so that most of them, not all, but most of them could attend. Mm-hmm. We bribed them with donuts. Truth be told, you know, can't have something in the evening unless you provide a little food. But they were just so happy that we actually were so interested and cared about their students that they came.
I want to thank you for just sharing your perspective, your lens. I appreciate it. And just thank you for really displaying your passion for education, for student success. And so anybody who's listening or will listen will clearly see your passion for students and for education. So thank you. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So there you have it, another episode completed in regards to PERC Up with the President. And of course, we just finished our episode with Lynn Kearny, Board of Trustee for Rock Valley College. If you didn't hear anything, if you didn't have any takeaway, remember this. Early exposure to students, or early exposure for students regarding their education, It's an extreme passion, real world experience regarding that early exposure is key to students gaining or being inspired to learn and to grow. And as you can see from Trustee Kearny's lens, it's really about looking at community from a holistic perspective and partnering to provide that early exposure and provide it early and often. And if you're able to do that, then enrollment happens. And if you're able to enroll students, then persistence happens, retention happens, and they're there so that they can complete. So once again, thank you for listening and enjoy the day.